Hey guys, this is Robert the Body Genius. I am a movement specialist and a pain relief expert. I am also a golfer, and I'm here to share with you the things I pick up on my way to getting better as a golfer and things to help you as athletes, be less in pain, have more flexibility, things like that. Today, I want to talk about golf and the equipment myth, equipment technique. I don't know if there's a myth. Just said that. Um, but I talked to a guy the other day. He's a fitter, and he said to me, it's a 95% technique, 5% equipment. I said, okay, because talking about getting better, and I just got a couple of fittings, trying to get some new clubs because I was having some issues with what was happening with my strikes, the ball, all of that, and I'll put that in another video. But he said, 95% technique, 5% equipment. And I had to think about that. And I think that is true in when you're in certain ranges of your growth. I mean, when you're first starting off, clubs don't matter at all. They don't have, just having actually having clubs is all you really need. At least, some that are, if you're an adult, that they're adult clubs, they're not children's clubs, and if you're a kid, that they're at least short enough for you to use. And even sometimes that doesn't matter when you're a kid, you kind of just figure it out. But as an adult, you want clubs that are at least going to be long enough for you. And if you're a really tall person, then maybe having some that are a little bit longer, but there's still not much. I mean, an inch and a half, inch, whatever it is that you can extend. That's a nice boon for those people that are, extremely tall. We're talking like 6'3", 6'4", but other than that, when you're starting off, equipment doesn't matter, right? When you're very high level, again, I don't want to say the equipment doesn't matter because obviously these guys they sign with these different companies or the companies sign them, so they're getting a pay cut of playing the clubs, but and obviously we got to take into account that that's got to be a factor. But they're also going to play the clubs that are going to suit them the best. But that's also why they have the tour vans, because the tour vans they're going to get you fit. Those guys are out there of the highest caliber. They're going to fit whatever equipment that they have to make sure that you are going to be able to perform at your best. So again, I feel like the clubs, I don't feel like it's pretty clear that the clubs are less of a factor at that higher level, except when we do see guys sign with a new company. And it hasn't been a while that I've seen this, but there used to be a lot of guys that would sign, they get these signing bonuses and they go from one club company to another, and then all of a sudden their game would change or they might start falling off and dropping off. And we've seen more of that than we've seen guys switch to clubs and just outright win. Now, we have seen it, and when that happens, those clubs sell. But again, those clubs are always fit to the guy because they have experts on, every part of the bag. So at the high and the low, and I think it's a very small percentage. That 5% is probably correct. But in the middle there, I think it's a larger percentage, but no more than, 10 or 15%, simply because if you're on that path to get better, you want to understand the tools that you're using and how they're going to benefit you, or at least you want to know or feel that these are working for me. Because if you play with clubs that you've been fighting against, but you don't know you've been fighting against them until you swing some clubs that like, oh, this is a lot easier for me to take aim at a target and it goes there, or try to do a shot shape and it performs, you know, when you get clubs like that that are able to do what you're attempting to do, it's it's definitely going to, lower your scores, increase your confidence, all of those things. But it's only going to do so much, right? It's still going to be all technique, because we've seen the guys at the highest level, they'll pick up somebody else's clubs, pure them, or just make note to like, hey, like, I don't like how it trailed out to the right, but I hit it pure, but that your irons are set up to do that, or your driver's set up to do that. So, but yet and still their technique is what is going to allow them to actually see if that club works for them. Um, so that's also a thing. You got to have decent technique for yourself to be able to see if the clubs are actually going to benefit you. Because I hear a lot of guys that go to fittings and then they either got injured the day before, which is always some random stuff, or they got sick, or just not swinging it well that day. You know, you hear these, your stories of these, and that messes up the fitting process, supposedly. So there's a little bit of trepidation for people to go back to fittings there, but they still want new clubs, you know. So sometimes they just pick stuff off the rack. Regardless, the whole point being that I want to know what other people think about the 95% technique, 5% equipment. I think I'm gonna stick to what I said. It's 5% for the high and low. Like it's a negligible amount almost. But in the middle, I think it's more like 10 to 15%, depending on where you are. And even still, I feel like at the highest level, you know, it's a smaller percentage than we think because with with the clubs being able to be fit to each player in the most minute way, like that almost takes equipment, I would think, out of the equation just for the fact that you're not buying anything off the shelf and there's not going to be anything that doesn't fit you. So anything you imagine to do with the ball you can do, but it comes down to your technique. And at that highest level, we're talking about 1% gains, you know, from these players. I mean, you see these guys shooting 10, 11, 12 under through 4 days and even higher through majors. That 1% can easily be the difference between you shooting 5 under a day or, you know, +1. You know, there's a difference between you potentially making a cut and going home early. So I think as you progress through your golf career, it'll fluctuate, but yeah, I think the percentage for most of the guys in the middle ground is going to be 10 to 15%. Again, I think that's and I think like once you switch, it's that 15% because you're gonna see gains almost immediately, and then it goes down because it's becoming your technique is becoming the thing now. You see, that's why I think it's a scale of a slightly sliding scale because there's no way that equipment's going to be more than 15% um, to accommodate for your game. So we'll talk about some more, you know, fittings, clubs. We're going to do all sorts of stuff. But just wanted to start with that, see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. See you out there.